Hi guys, this is Amrita from ArcelorMittal, India, and as a member of DFI, I am really excited for the first webinar to be organized by Women in Deep Foundations. I'm particularly proud of being a member of Women in Deep Foundations, more so because our industry has in my opinion, has quite undervalued women's contribution towards the sector and towards the overall engineering profession as such when you see it from a long point of view. Women in Deep Foundations, I'm really hopeful that by providing this platform and helping other women voice their opinions and their publishing their work, reaching out to them, I really hope that Women in Deep Foundations can make a real difference in the sector. And I really wish Women in Deep Foundation's first webinar team, especially Lucky, Teresa, and Mary, to for a very successful webinar, and looking forward to it. Yay.
Hi, I'm Dola, and I work in the fascinating world of ground engineering. When I graduated as a civil engineer in the early 90s, it probably wasn't a very coveted area of work. But I chose to build a strong foundation, quite literally. And here I am. I'm sure there are many of you out here who are at the threshold of making that choice to step into this vastly diversified world of civil engineering. I'm very excited and looking forward to this Deep Foundation Institute's conversation on Connect and Grow, bridging academia and practice. Look forward to it.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone. I'm Lucky Nagarajan with Geek in America and chair of Deep Foundation Institute Women in Deep Foundations Committee, USA. It is my pleasure to welcome all the attendees to our first webinar of the webinar series, Civil Engineering Careers, Connect and Grow, organized by DFI of India Women in Deep Foundations Group. I would like to thank DFI of India staff, GV Prasad, Aniruddhan, Mahendran, Muhammad Atif, Pranav. I would also like to thank Women in the Foundations of India group core members Akhila Mane with Keller India, Annapurni Iyer from Enjosim, Dr. Yogini Deshpande with Renuka Consultants, Sangeen Nayak with Keller India again, Sayantani Ghosh with Langan, Dimpu Chindappa with Tensor Geosynthetics, and special thanks to Mary Ellen, Teresa, Engler, Carol, and Angie from DFI of USA. Next slide, please. So please note, recording of this webinar is prohibited. Online webinar recording will be available on DFI India YouTube channel in 2 weeks. So wait for that. Next slide, please. So before we jump into the webinar details, I would like to go through the attendee control panel. So as you can see, this is the attendee control panel. You will also see if you want to hide the control panel to view clear screen, you can press this orange button. If you want to see it in show full screen mode, you can press the third button, which looks like a desktop computer. Next slide, please. Please enter any questions during the time of the discussion along with your name and organization name in the questions tab. We'll be happy to answer these questions for you throughout the webinar. So first, I would like to start our webinar series with the mission statement of the Women in Deep Foundations. Enhance professional development opportunities for women in the deep foundations industry. Next slide, please. The DFI's Women in Deep Foundations Committee was established in 2015. So this is a phenomenal group. And I've gotten the opportunity to be part of this exceptional group for the last 4 years. Members have actually helped me thrust my career to be successful in the last 4 years. This group is not just for men and women. This is not just for women. This is both for men and women. We both need to work together to foster, support, mentor young engineers to success and also to retain them in the industry. So the committee also organizes lectures, networking receptions during conferences, also works with DFI's Educational Trust Fund to give professional development grants to 5 or 6 students, professors, young engineers in the industry. So these grants are also uh, provide free registration to annual conference. This year, one of our grant winners is Akila Mane, who is actually part of the DFI of India Women in D Foundations group member. So there are two regional chapters of Women in D Foundations. One is in Pittsburgh, and the other one is the Metro New York City. So Pittsburgh is a great group of women engineers who support each other personally, professionally, also mentor each other, and organize small events once every quarter. Metro New York City Women in the Foundations chapter is fairly a large group, organizes 2 events per year. Every event is unique, and speakers come from different civil engineering backgrounds to share their story, their knowledge, provide tools for success. Due to COVID pandemic, live events have not been able to be organized. Passionate engineers from the Metro Group launched webinar series called Converting Crisis into Opportunities, Different Perspectives, which has been widely popular and successful. Apart from this, DFI Women in D Foundations Committee also supports industry academia partnership through many professors who are DFI and committee members. Next slide, please. So to bring the same support and foster women engineers in India, DFI of India launched Women in the Foundations Group during 2018 conference. Anjana Kadakia, senior principal of Thornton Tomasetti in USA, also director of India office, shared her story, challenges, also the mentors that she has had who has helped her to be a leader of the industry. She left us with an important quote: do something you love and you will never have to work a day in your life. That is so true to me as a geotechnical engineer. Next slide, please. Our first event was at 2019 conference. Women in the Foundations Group again organized a panel discussion on challenges for women in the industry. Dr. Yogini Deshpande with Renuka Consultants was the moderator. Important and noteworthy conversations to understand challenges of a civil engineer 50 years ago and today. How has it changed? What has helped change the industry to accept more women? It was a robust discussion and also led to starting a diverse group in India. Next slide, please. So since 2019, Women in Deep Foundations group has evolved a lot of things. Has started a WhatsApp group. Through this group, we've been able to discuss many diverse topics, technical and non-technical side of the industry. We also support each other and share our experiences, be it in the field or in the office. Apart from this, we also encourage our members to apply for DFI's professional development grants. Also hope to start something like this in India soon. Today, webinar series started as a conversation between Dr. Yogini Deshpande and myself. It was made possible through this wonderful, passionate, and amazing members. Thanks to all of them. Next slide, please. So now let's jump into our webinar 1. I would like to introduce the excellent moderators for the webinar 1. Annapurni Iyer, who is the founder of the NGOSAME Consultants. She's also a council member of Women's India Chamber of Commerce and Industry. She was one of our panelists during 2019 conference. She's also mentor to many engineers in the industry. If you haven't met her or spoken to her, I highly recommend you all to reach out to her. She's an amazing engineer, mother, and inspiration to all of us. A fun fact about Annapurni Iyer is she enjoys learning grammar lessons of her son, and she's also very sporty in solving his geometry problems as well. I don't think it is weird at all. A lot of mothers probably on the call can relate to Annapurni Iyer. So our second moderator is Sangin Desai. She is the deputy manager, business development at Keller Ground Engineering India. I met Sangin for the first time at the 2019 conference. As we met, we had many things to share, relate to, and also to think about future of Women in the Foundations Group in India. Thank you so much, Sangin and Annapurni, for working with me all the time. She's also another amazing engineer, mother, and mentor to others. So, a fun fact about Sangin: she loves spending her time in Mathiran. It is a hill station in Western Ghats in Mumbai. I'm definitely adding that to my bucket list to visit when I'm in India again. Thank you so much, Annapurni and Sangin. Please take it over. I'm very proud to be here with you all.
Thank you very much, Lucky. Thank you very much. DFI platform has been very wonderful from the day I have been associated with them. And warm welcome to all the participants, our speakers for the day, whom I'll be introducing in a short while. Let me take the opportunity to, of course, thank DFI for this platform, because it is going to be a lot of fun and learning. Okay, the webinar series, Connect and Grow, and this webinar 1 is going to be a part of it, where we'll be trying to bridge academia and practice. What we observed, okay, over these years, even as an engineer myself, I have experienced that there's a lot of gap between what we learn in academics and immediately we step onto the industry. So always it has been a feeling that somewhere there has to be an effort to bridge this gap, and that is how we evolve this topic over a lot of discussions in women in the foundation meetings. And we thought that why not make this effort and start bridging this gap. So that's the reason here we are with this webinar series, and we try to start with this webinar 1, which I'm sure is going to be adding value to start to begin with me as well as to all the attendees over here. So the whole idea is to give a platform to all the job seeking young engineers. Even the experienced are going to benefit out of it. Experienced can share their views through the chat windows or the message windows, and it is going to be beneficial to one and all over here. So without wasting much time, let us introduce our panelists for the evening. We have 2 speakers here. So I begin with Ms. Dola Roy Chaudhary, who is our one of the speakers. Now, thanks. Please come. Now, she is the founder director of G-Cube Consulting Engineers. I have known Dola ma'am for past 20 years. I mean, she has been a veteran in this geosynthetic industry, especially, which is again a niche part of it. She brings best. Through her company G-Cube Consulting Engineers, she brings best practices in geosynthetics for ground engineering applications. She brings in over 25 years of rich experience and experience in geosynthetic applications across various application sectors. She is a member of various societies, and she has been honored with Lifetime Achievement Award in recognition of contribution for development and promotion of geosynthetics in infrastructure projects by IGS, and that is International Geosynthetic Society, Indian chapter. Welcome, ma'am. We have
Thank you for having me.
Speaker 2 for the evening, Dr. Kumar Pichumani, sir. Now, he is again a wonderful personality, Regional Director at AECOM India Private Limited, heading the geotechnical engineering business, even the business sector of it. He brings in again 25 years of varied and rich experience from the field of geotechnical engineering. Sir is also an adjunct professor at IIT Chennai and chartered engineer with Institute of Engineers, London. Sir's experience includes foundation design for various types of structures in transportation and marine infrastructure projects. His quote is, geotechnical engineering is a science, but its practice is an art. All geotechnical engineers are doctors since they treat soils. So a very strong quote and quite inspiring to all the attendees over here. If you could go to the previous slide, I could read out fun fact of Dola ma'am, which I missed. Yeah, fun fact of ma'am, yes, I can truly relate with it because she every day she attempts to be in different state, I think, of India. One of the main reason I took up ground engineering work was to satiate my wanderlust. The only 4 states where she hasn't worked yet are Mizoram, Manipur, Nagaland, and Andaman and Nicobar. I'm sure, ma'am, you'll do it soon. Yeah. So to go ahead with the session, we have framed certain questions which I'm sure will be evolving in the minds of a lot of young engineers who are present over here along with us, and let us aim to bridge this gap through these certain questions and discussions that we'll be having through this 60 minutes time limit. So over to you, Sangin, for the first discussion over here.
Thank you so much, Anupurni. Thank you, Kumar sir. Thank you, Dola ma'am, for accepting to be on this platform and help young engineers, guiding them. So, Kumar sir, I would like to know your views that since you are in geotechnical and civil field from last 20 years, more than 20 years, so what draws your attention in the CV? Say when you are seeing the CV of any fresher or graduate training or say experienced. So what is the difference which you would like to look at? Sir, you are not audible.
Yeah. First of all, let me thank WIDF for inviting me for this panel discussion. I thank Annapurni and Sangin for introducing me, and it will be a great pleasure to share this session with Dola. I have known Dola for again since 1987 when she was 89, when she was in Chennai for the first time when RE walls were introduced into India. All the 6 flyovers in Chennai were hers, and she introduced the Chennai RE walls over there. So that was something new as early as 89. Thank you, everybody. Okay, Sangin, over to your question as to what is it that I see when I look at the CV of an engineer. Okay, nice. So first thing, what I look for is, as usual, is since so many CVs come, how do I select the best, or how do I select the, so for that, at least a minimal, I'll have to look at the how they have studied, how they have performed in their career. So even it should be quite good. That is the first step. But beyond that, what I look for is how are they able to communicate. For me, communication is very important. I'll come to it a little later on how the communication should be. Probably there will be questions from others on that. But what I see first is their academic performance should have been good. Their fundamentals should have been, it will be clear from their CVs and the project work that they have done as to how then where they stand. This is what I look for first.
Okay, so according to you, so basically it's the communication skill and academic performance.
Correct. It should be a combination of both.
I think I would add one more thing, a very small point to what Kumar just now mentioned. See, the very basic CV is your first look as far as the industry is concerned, because you are as good as that piece of paper where, before you actually started working. So that becomes, it's like the first picture. So that does need to be really good. And when I'm saying really good, it's not about the font or, colorful or something. So apart from the substance, how you put it across. And the first definition starts with, something that we often miss out is the basic difference between a CV and a resume. So when you are talking about CV, I'm talking about curriculum vitae. So that's the story of your life. So for a fresher, the difference is very small because you've just started off. So what you put across on that piece of paper is important.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely, because it is the first phase of interaction that that a job seeker is going to have with the prospective employer over there, and that has to be quite communicative enough so that they come closer, and the employer feels that he at least should interact with the job seeker. Okay,
True.
recruiting is the next stage, but at least he should have the feel to interact with him. So yes, it's quite, the points were quite interesting. And I'm sure our 88 attendees who are present over here and whoever are the freshers out of it, obviously they would have apprehensions that what to present and what not to present. Okay, because when you come out, so I'm sure they would have taken these tips, and I'm sure that will help them. Yes, Sangeet, over to you.
Yeah, sir and ma'am has nicely highlighted two main takeaway points. Like one is communication skill, and second is presentation of the CV or resume. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. Dola ma'am, I would like to ask you, since your main expertise is geosynthetics from last 15, 20 years, so which requires an overall knowledge on different sectors of civil. So say, what would you recommend for someone who is applying for a product sector or marketing sort of field?
See, geosynthetics probably a few years back, or 15, 20 years back, was a very, very niche market. So when we came into the market 30 years, 25 years back, it was really niche. But in today's scenario, it's almost mainframe. But the fact remains that the most important portion is going to be your core knowledge. So irrespective of geosynthetics or any other product sector, especially at a launch stage, you need to understand the core science behind it as the first step. Does not matter what is the product. End of the day, if you are launching a new product or a new system, irrespective of civil engineering or any other thing, you are basically catering to a demand in the market. So you are catering to something where there is a gap. So unless you understand the science behind why that gap has been created and what is it that is required, you will not be able to address it. So especially if you are targeting a specific job at a launching stage, you will have to understand the background of it. And most engineering products will have a very, very technical core of it. So when you are talking about geosynthetics or any of it, your core geotechnical reasons, like, you are in Keller, Sangeet. So you address ground improvement in a big way. So when Keller is talking about a particular improvement or a product sector, you are addressing a need in the market. So unless a person who's applying to Keller understands that gap, that, okay, this is the traditional method, this is how that job is done, this is where the problem is, and that is what is being addressed. So without that knowledge, does not matter if your everything else is good, but somewhere down the line, it is not just sales or marketing, it is the word has to be redefined as techno marketing. So we are in a civil engineering industry. So there is no go without a strong core background. That becomes important. Kumar, I'm sure you'll want to add something to that.
Definitely, Dola. The core geotechnical engineering is important, and how geotextiles function. There are myriad varieties of geotextiles in different areas of geotechnical engineering. The basics of that the engineer should know. Thank you.
Because a lot of it is going to be, your training is going to happen once you join the organization. The organization's obviously going to take in a lot of effort in training you about the nuances of it. But a training can do only so much. So unless your core area is strong enough, and that is where you need to choose where you want to work. Like what Lucky mentioned in her introduction is like you have to love doing what you do. So don't do it, apply it just on the basis like, okay, this company has a stable marketing, okay, they have a stable platform, the salaries are good, obviously they play a big part. But more than anything, you have to like what you do. You really have to like what you do. And for that, you have to like civil engineering first. So your basic engineering, you have to really like.
Right. Well said.
Communication.
Yeah,
This is where
that automatically comes. Exactly. That obviously comes, those are the inherent skills, the communication skills and everything. So those will be there. But new products, if you're talking about, it will always be targeted to a, need-based area. So there is a need for it. And only that's the basic reason you are launching something new. So that has to be identified, and especially if you're talking like you were saying, in market development or business development kind of an area, then you are going to be having conversations with the industry veterans. So when you are doing ground improvement out there, you are talking to somebody who's been in the ground improvement traditional market for years together. So you have to match that level of skills, at least in the basic conversation. So
Correct,
that has to be there. That has to be there.
Correct. So basic knowledge on civil is anyway required.
Yes,
Product specific knowledge should be there.
That's
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Annapurni, over to you.
Yeah. So the first set of the two questions why we organized or why we post was because it is necessary for the attendees also to know that how we are taking the flow. Otherwise, they will get a little bit lost. So the we started off with how the resume looks like and what an employer looks generally in their resume, especially for freshers. And then slowly we moved on to the other aspects. Okay, because when we talk of civil engineering, generally as a fresher, when you come out, we look at either site or design. These are broadly these are the two things that is taught and sent to us. Right? But apart from that, there are so many fields where you can excel. And marketing and business development doesn't mean that you're going just selling something. Without knowing the technology, you cannot stand. Nobody will make give you space over there. So there is where technology or technical aspects or the importance of civil engineering, the basics comes into play. That is the reason we put forward the question of this marketing and business development aspects, because geosynthetic at that time was a niche sector, as ma'am rightly said, and the geosynthetic industry had to strive hard to get it to this level. So that is the flow we started with. Now we slowly move into the expectation of industry from a fresher or a graduate engineer. Okay, so it could be we have to discuss both the ways. Okay, so we start off with this is again especially for Kumar sir. So you have been in this in the field of core civil engineering, be it design, be it construction, the core installation part as well. So, what is the difference in approach or expectation, okay, from the consulting field and the construction field? Okay, when a fresher comes into the, he is into the pool of, market. So when he is there, and when when a consulting firm needs, a candidate as or a construction industry needs. So, what is the difference of level of expectation so that it is clear to them as well?
Thank you, Annapurni, for that question. You look at design and construction, the window is slightly different in both the cases. When we talk of design, the fundamentals of the subject should be clear. And more often, all consultants will look at a master's degree for a design engineer to get into the field, get into the organization. When it comes to construction, at the BTech level or bachelor's level itself, people can move into construction. So in construction, once a student comes out of college, definitely he will not have any experience. He has to learn. So he has to keep his eyes open and he has to learn almost anything and everything that he sees. So only through that learning, he will know as to what is correct, what is wrong. Because in the industry, there may be a lot of things. It will take him a lot of time to learn, but as people have put forward that passion should be there. Once your passion is there, then you can learn anything. Your learning is not difficult at all. You should have the passion. In design, as I told you, your concepts of the fundamentals should be very clear of the subject, whether it is structural engineering or geotech or any field of geotechnical engineering. And when it comes to geosynthetics, again, each of these geosynthetics, how they behave, the basic concepts, if it is clear, then you can always build on. At the design stage, as you come out of the college, you won't have experience, but the fundamentals will help you as a stepping stone, and you can move forward. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, sir. Ma'am, you want to add something?
Job readiness of fresh engineers has always been a debatable point. The industry continues to blame academia that the students are not job ready, irrespective of UG or PG. And the academia has its own things that I have to cover so much of course. There is, because see, at UG level, it's like, you know, you are just giving an introduction. So 3 years civil engineering, you really don't learn anything. You don't really earn anything. What you get is just a basic exposure. So that exposure can only help you to shortlist the area of your interest. Because when I'm talking about civil engineering, it's a whole lot of subjects. There's structures, there's geotech is obviously at UG level is not a subject as such. So there's soil mechanics, there's, you know, a basic bit on a rock, there is some survey, there is environmental. So you are basically just getting, it's like a sampler. So when you go into a restaurant, you order for a sampler, so a little bit of everything. And finally, you will have to choose something. So that's where, you know, the job readiness debate has been time memorial. And that is where probably a discussion like a conversation like this or a discussion like this is so very important. Is you know, when we started talking about this at the start of the pandemic, you'd recall, both of you, we were talking about all these points. And that's when we started talking, you know, that there is this need to bridge because end of the day, any market, like job is a market. So end of the day, it is a demand and supply. At the industry, we need people, and academia is the one who's producing it. So unless we are going to be working together, it does not, we are not going to come out with, you know, what is it that we require. So that will always be a fact. At the same time, I feel the students, or especially at the UG level, where since you asked the question to Kumar in terms of consultancy between, you know, between, the difference between consulting jobs and field jobs.
Correct.
So that was the core question that you took. Very often there is a very clear misconception. So, you know, when it comes down to consultancy, the image that you get is a nice air-conditioned office, a good i6 minimum specification, i7 laptop. You are, you know, you are having client discussions, you have on-site meetings. So sounds glamorous. Sounds glamorous, but end of the day, it boils down to engineering. You really have to have your engineering background, and so it again, you know, somewhere down the, and the same is true for even in field. So job is as good as only what is executed. So both the areas at the starting level is going to have a learning curve. There is going to be a very, very strong learning curve. And as a fresher at even an MTech student is treated as a fresher when he joins into a consulting firm or a designing firm, or, you know, it is, he has to learn, because at his MTech level, he would have concentrated on one experiment, one problem, one area. And once he has got into consulting, it's going to be diversified, and very often he is going to be thrown into the whole, you know, mix of everything. And so he has to navigate. He or she has to navigate. And for that, you need the basics. So that bridging has to be there. That bridging has to be there. So the stereotyping has to go. At the same time, when you're talking about field job, it's not that, you know, it's not always wearing a hard hat and standing in hot sun. So, you know, I mean, very often a lot of, you know, there is also something called parental influence, especially when we are talking about the Indian context, and especially when we talk about women civil engineers. there's a lot of parental concern also when we talk about field jobs. We just saw the video, uh, there are so many women engineers today on the field. It's absolutely available. Maybe 30 years back when I came into this industry, or we will be talking to Madhvi and Chitra in the next series. So when our generation came into the industry, there were some limitations. There are still limitations in field jobs, especially for girls in today's scenario in terms of infrastructure and other things. But a field job need not be always just standing in the sun. So the stereotyping has to go, so that we understand the core of what exactly we are expected to do, and each construction firm is going to have a different job profile. So that's where the difference is going to come in as far as consulting versus field is concerned.
So yes, the expectation line is drawn, but at the same time, basics remain the same, and they have to be prepared to handle both of them together.
Yeah.
Right. So thank you. Now, one announcement or one request to all our attendees: we are not going to have a separate question and answer session at the end of the session on this event. So whatever questions are there, so there's a request that you can please send it across in the chat window, and we will try to address them as much as possible during the session itself. So please be quick, don't leave the opportunity, as we have the speakers online, and let's try to take the questions live. Though we have framed, it would be nice to have questions directly from the attendees. Now, I think I take over I give the leadership skill question to Sangeen. Please, may take over the next one.
Yeah, thank you, Annapurni. So in our first question, how resume should be, one of the point was presentation and communication. So along with presentation and communication, leadership go hand in hand. So most of the time we see that young engineers who are very dynamic in their college duration gets out of focus when they enter the industry. So I would like to ask Kumar sir as well as Dola ma'am, how do you what do you recommend how the young engineers be on track, like they don't lose focus on leadership qualities?
Yeah, thank you, Sangin. I don't agree that they lose focus. The focus is always there. Only difference is that in the college they were focusing on non-academic activities in their leadership. So it doesn't matter whether it is academic or non-academic. Leadership is leadership. You will be in whichever area and whatever area you are in. So when they come into the industry, it's all in all professional. So that is the entire framework itself is new for the student, and hence he or she will take some time to get adjusted and to show the leadership qualities. But the leadership quality will be immediately visible from the way the student interacts with the team. Teamwork itself is leadership. You have to be first a team member. That will lead you to leadership. If your leadership qualities are not there, then becoming a team member itself will take some time. So this will be visible. So I don't agree that they are not focused. They will get focused, and then soon it will take at least 4 or 5 years for them to show their typical leadership qualities. For that, which is the management, if management is what you're looking at, it will take them at least 4 or 5 years to get into the management stage. That is where communication becomes important. You don't know your views, please.
Yeah, I would, I agree with you. It's not something that you lose focus on. This is something you continue to hone, and organization does give you a platform, and that is where you have to grab those opportunities. What the organization, like Kumar mentioned, is gives you a team. So how you work with that team and how you do it is something that is inherently going to be there. And again, I would say you will not easily lose focus if you like what you do. Losing focus, one of the reasons could be you really don't gel with the industry that you are working in. Because even within civil engineering, we know that the array is so vast. So before you entered, you might have had a certain image about that organization, about the organizational culture. And one of the ways, one of the things could be that, there is a mismatch out there in expectations. But leadership skills, this is again something, we have been discussing, is something that is somewhere down the down the line, it is in you. And when you're talking about, bringing it out, it shows, it manifests in a lot of ways. It need not be that, you have a team and you are trying to, like a group discussion, like, most colleges go through group discussions at the selection stage. So I often moderate those sessions, and I see it's not about creating a fish market and, whoever is most vocal is the leader. Need not be. A leader has to take like Kumar mentioned, has to take the team along with them. And
True.
even at a junior level, those things are apparent. Those things are, because those are your inherent skills end of the day. And it comes out. It comes out in interactions. It does show. So that's where the only way I feel is you are losing focus is if you're focusing on something else, because end of the day you have to focus somewhere. So if you are not focusing in what you are doing, you are focusing elsewhere. So if that is happening, then you do need to sit down and have an analysis as to, what exactly you are doing and what do you want to do in the short term and in the long term. And then, and there is nothing wrong. There is nothing wrong in changing your course midway. So you don't enjoy doing something, please don't do it. Like, you find out which aspect of the job is it that you want to do. And you will
Right.
automatically gain your focus. You'll gain back your focus.
True. Even for a fresher, when you give a small task as well, as a senior, you can judge that, how committed or how focused or, within that time frame or with the team, the support of the team. You can judge so many things, through which you can see the leadership skill, it may not be evident immediately. As sir said, it may take 1 or 2 years to at least understand for them that, they have to develop this. But yes, that inherent qualities will be there in that person, which will eventually come out, and that can be nurtured, and that person will develop as a leader. Okay. So the idea was of telling that the getting defocused was, when he enters an organization, there is so many fields. Okay, we have design, we have sales, marketing, site, quality. So when he comes out, he may have certain things in mind. Okay, so how could so that was the idea, and I think the question, the answer was quite clear, that how you have to fix your focus and shift your gears accordingly.
So at the beginning, if you are clear on what you want to do, it's easy path.
It's not going to be very clear right as you join, because let's face it, when we came into the industry, what did we know? Nothing.
Correct.
Nobody does. Nobody knows anything.
Nobody
so we
knows,
all
exactly.
learn, we all learn on the job. We all learn on the job.
And the focus also gets changed after a few years of work experience.
Correct. Absolutely.
I personally started in a, at one point, I wanted to be, while I was in my school, I wanted to be an architect. So somewhere down the line, I changed and I said, no, I want to be an engineer. And then when I got my first job, that was in a very different line. It was more into, a structural. So structural, I worked in Hindalco for a few years, and then, it was more to do with roofing, industrial structures. Somewhere down the line, it wasn't really making much sense to me. And not that back at college, I liked soil engineering. Believe me, that was a subject which I was mortally scared of. So when it came down to soil mechanics, my target in college was very simple. I wanted 40 marks. So my target was very clearly 40 marks, and I knew that I would score very well in the other subjects and I would compensate. So, you know, I don't feel anything, you know, today I'm quite happy about it, that because I was so scared of that subject, somewhere down the line, once I got into the job, I really took out my textbooks again and I had to read them. So it's about, you know, what you want to do. My target had always been a 40 marks, and even now when I go back to my college, my professors, you know, sometimes they wonder about it. Like, you know, this was one student who probably, I was always on a first bencher, and the only reason probably I slogged on my marks and academics was to maintain my hostel seat, because there was girls, there were very few girls, so there were just 5 seats in the hostel for a particular batch of all engineering. So effectively, with 5 branches in the college, only one girl could get that hostel seat, and losing out the hostel seat meant I would lose out on all the activities. So, like what Kumar mentioned, in college you concentrate on everything non-academic, and that's exactly what I did. I concentrated on everything non-academic, and for that, that hostel seat was very important. So, hostel seat, since it was important, I needed to maintain my rank. There was no other go. If I cannot top at least amongst the girl students, I cannot get my hostel seat. So that's where again, you know, focus. So focus on what you want. So my focus at that point was my hostel seat, and for that, if I had to study, I had to study, plain and simple. So I sincerely feel, you know, for academics or for job or for students, you need to make your short-term goals and long-term goals.
Correct, correct.
You should have
Once that happens, you will automatically focus.
Right,
So
right.
I'm sure out of the 86 participants, whoever are, lady engineers or female civil engineers, if they have any apprehension, I'm sure all the doubts, would have been converted into confidence that they have to continue in this field and excel here. They can excel definitely. So I think, thank you, ma'am. I think we have some live questions, and it's very interesting to have them, to be addressed,
Absolutely.
rather than asking our prepared questions. Sangeet, would like to take up that one?
Yes, yes, sure, sure. Kumar sir, there is one question. Say somebody is pursuing PhD and he is getting the feedback that for PhDs there is no industry position, and he is a bit apprehensive. So what he should do? He is in course of completing PhD now.
Okay.
Very nice question, and
nice
just
question.
a very and especially to the right person who can answer it completely.
Difficult to answer also.
Sir,
Not at all
it's not
difficult for you.
to answer.
Yeah, see, okay. When somebody when I did my PhD long time back, again, PhD was meant only for academicians, and that is how the whole thing went. So getting into a consulting industry, you don't need a PhD. You just need a master's is sufficient. Same thing still continues even now, but not to that extent. We do have a number of PhD people in the industry, in the design industry. But what happens is, in a PhD, you focus on a particular field alone, and then you should be open to the general area of civil engineering or geotechnical engineering. That means it will be like one should not feel demotivated that I'm going to work on just a pile designs while my PhD has been on seismic effects of something which is very exotic. So that has to come down, and you should attend interviews with various, you should not keep your mind closed. The PhD student should apply to all these consulting organization. Okay, in industry, in the construction industry, it may be difficult, but in the design consulting industry, it may be possible. But that again depends on how you are open to all the areas of engineering, including simple bearing capacity calculations to liquefaction analysis. We do almost everything. So when it comes to liquefaction, you will get one liquefaction problem once in 2 years or 3 years or 4 years. So that open, and pile designs will be there every day, it will be a daily affair. So one should be able to do that. At the same time, that leadership quality will come over here, because when you join at a PhD level, then there will be a team under you, and it is definitely you will grow fast if you have a PhD, because your fundamentals in the subject will be good. So it is not that it is difficult to get into this. You should be convincing. So as Dola Rai Chaudhary pointed out, you be focused. You want to get into the industry, you focus your CV. Again, coming back to CV, because that will be the first thing that we will see. And in the CV, you should portray how you will fit into the industry. That is most important.
Okay.
Hope this
Thank you,
was
thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
right.
The question was, I think he has got the answer, and I'm sure he will take the directions accordingly. I do have one more live question. Ma'am, maybe you can take this up. Do you suggest a fresher to stick to a company which does specific products, example, ground improvement, heavy foundation, or retention? How should an engineer navigate? Does she have to spread his experience over all products? That's the question.
See, most organizations will already give you option. Generally, no organization will keep you at initial level only in one area, because there is something called a rotation. Because end of the day, as an organization and as a team leader, I would want to check out all your aspects. So it's not always up to you as an individual to choose. That will not happen very often right at the beginning of the career. So, but yes, I would advise you to keep looking at all the other things, because unless and until your horizon broadens, you will not be able to find out and explore again what is it that you really love doing. So for exploration, I would sincerely advise, if you are getting an opportunity to explore other fields within the same organization, you should do. I generally do not advise young engineers to hop jobs or companies right in the beginning, because end of the day, it takes time to gel into an organization's culture. Each organization will have a culture, and that's very, very important aspect of that organization. So you have to gel within that. Not every time you are going to get a very good boss. It will not happen. There will be plus and minus always. So it is very easy for me to sit out here and say that, like, do this, do that, but there are going to be both sides of the coin. So end of the day, you will have to find your equation based on where you are. So if it is an organization with a diversified portfolio, almost everybody at some stage will give you an option to explore other areas also, because that's all. You have to understand that it's also in the interest of the organization. No organization wants specialists at the very basic level. So at the basic level, we want more of generalists, because only after a few years you are going to start become a specialist, irrespective of the field. It could be a very basic core engineering, it could be consulting, it could be academia. Like, the previous question, a PhD did not happen overnight. You slogged, you worked in a particular problem area for 4 years, 5 years. So end of the day, you could not have done it if you had not explored so many things. It would have taken you a long time to define your problem statement for your PhD. So you did not define your PhD problem statement on day one. You did the basics. Only then you defined it. Same way for a fresher, even if you have got into a job, I would sincerely advise explore. So that is where you are going to understand how it is working. That's going to be, it will give you a lot of flexibility. And most organizations will allow you to do that, especially if they have a diversified portfolio. But unfortunately, or, somehow because of various circumstances, if you get into a job where, you are talking about a very narrow field, that can happen, if you got into a very specialized industry, and you have a very narrow bandwidth, because I'm too specialized. Say my organization, if I'm too specialized, then I don't have a very wide bandwidth to let you explore. But within that also, you have various job functions to explore. So if you have started into designs, take the opportunity to go to the field, because no designing is going to be complete. Your design experience is not going to be complete if you don't know how it is being implemented in the field. So, so even if it's a narrow field, explore various steps. What goes into it, what happens, what is the quality aspects of it. So even if it is one product, there are going to be various aspects of that job. So explore those, because only then you will be able to really understand where you can excel. And driving towards excellence is not just your interest; it is also the interest of the organization. Everybody wants winners. Organizations want winners. And that's where, also I always talk about, even within your job, your entrepreneurship skills. How innovatively can you think? So if you are innovative, if you are thinking, say you are otherwise in design, but when you have gone to the field and you look into the QC aspect, you might be able to see something that the current team has not been able to see. So there is always a scope of improvement in each stage of the job. So I would sincerely advise, yes, you should explore. You should explore.
I think geosynthetics is one great example of that, because at the beginning only geotextile one product was known, and now still there are people who know only geotextile as one product, but there are n number of products with n number of specifications and n number of applications, and it evolved out of requirement and out of the dynamism in the industry. Now, coming to the next question, I think it has been already addressed, but by Kumar sir in the earlier question. This is from Mrs. M.R. Priyadarshini, CEG, Anna University, Chennai. Sir, you have mentioned about the bachelor's and master's requirement for the industry. What is your advice for researchers in the field of construction and design?
Is that question for me?
Yeah. Because I think it is more of related to research and thing. It maybe I think it somewhat overlaps with the earlier question of PhD. What we have.
So as I understand, what she is asking is, what is the requirement for a student who is going to move into the construction industry? Is that what?
Correct. Yes, correct. Yes. This is what. Yes.
Yeah. So going into the construction industries, your basic fundamentals of civil engineering should be there. And when you go into the construction industry, you should be, again, as I said, keep your eyes open, because what you see in the field will be totally different from what you have studied. You would have studied the absolutely perfect models of everything, how to construct. But in the field, it will be totally different. Many of the field conditions will never be addressed in the academia because they are all rare and site specific. So once you see on the site, you should always put on your investigation hat. Always try to ask the question why, how. All these questions should always be there in your mind. It may be totally different from what you studied. You have to apply a technology or a technique which may be totally different. For that, your basic fundamentals should be clear. If this open mind is there, you will fit in anywhere. Hope that answers the question.
Yes, I think definitely. I do have one more live question, which I think is a little interesting. I mean, of course, all the questions are interesting. This is interesting. How many years of experience? Okay, I think Dola ma'am can take this. How many years of experience is enough experience to start your own firm or to know about the subject?
You can even start right as you graduate.
Right.
Does not matter. I would give a very clear live example from IIT Gandhinagar, because I've been interacting with them a lot in the last few years. Almost every engineering college has an incubation center. Why do we have those incubation centers in the college? Is if you have something that you feel can address a need in the market, feel free to explore it. And believe me, it is the initial stage your institute supports those. And then subsequently, if it is a good product, it is like you can start off on your own. So it is like any other startup. Does not matter you are a civil engineer or a IT. We often identify startups from IT point of view. That okay, IT people are known for getting into startups right as they graduate from college or even before they graduate. But that's also true for civil engineers. um, there are so many areas, probably where I have a requirement that might have been something that has triggered your interest even at a BTech level. So starting off can be at any level, does not need to, you don't have to have a specific need for number of years. But yes, over a period of time, because if you're starting about, talking about starting something on your own, you are talking, if I really look at it from business point of view, then I'm talking about my risk-taking capacity. So if you have the, because when you are investing not just money, you are investing your time, you are investing your skills. So what is your risk taking capacity? And that will somewhere down the line decide on at which stage you want to step out of your comfort level and get into that risk based market. So this is something, it is, I would, and there are enough case histories in both the sectors. People like me, probably who are comparatively low risk takers. I had always wanted to do it, but my risk taking capacity, though everybody said, I could have taken that risk much earlier. But somewhere down the line, I probably had a goal that, okay, this I have to complete. And then I would go all out and do what I want to do. At the same time, you have to understand at a very young age, you don't have liabilities. You don't have far too many family expectations. You don't have uh, other goals set out. So sometimes that's what is the principle of startups. Sometimes. So, you are absolutely free to take risks at that level. So explore again. So I would sincerely think that there is no fixed rule. It depends on what is it that that has triggered that thought in you. So if it is a strong trigger, believe me, there are a number of people within your institute, outside your institute, who would be available to support, not just financially, but in terms of actually getting you those businesses. So that's where mentorship also comes in. So that's what we were talking about, Annapurni mentoring so many people. I mentor a lot of people, and that's where I can vouch for it, that I know people, I have worked with people who have got into businesses right as they graduated. So they graduation somewhere down the line did not have much meaning for them because they were so focused about it. So mentoring is very much a big platform available to you if you have. It's the same like any startup, And what is an angel investor? When we talk in terms of other businesses, an angel investor invests in you because he believes in you.
He believes.
So,
Correct.
yeah, and that belief will come if you believe in yourself. So if you believe in yourself, you believe in the technology you are talking about, there is a whole environment available to support you. So
I think
this is
anyway.
Perfect.
we are overshooting the time. Yeah, ma'am.
Annapurni, I think this can be a very good question for you as well, being the founder of EnjoSim. I think you should share your idea
Yes, your
of
experience.
how did you start? How did you start? How many years of experience you have to the attention?
Yeah, yes, I have been in McAfee, who are one of the pioneers in the field of geosynthetics. I started my career with them as a trainee engineer, and the experience that McAfee gave me was, like an ocean. As though they deal only in niche area, but it was open. At that time, we had to do, starting from design, site, logistics, from testing at the site, testing at the laboratory, everything had to be done except HR. I mean, we had to be our own HR at that time, definitely. So that's how we evolved, and yes, 16 years journey was quite interesting, and I think after some time get a feeling that maybe you could deliver more as an individual to the industry. If you are coming out, okay, it doesn't mean that you cut off all the ties with the industry or with McAfee. Still, I have very good ties with the company, but we feel that yes, coming out, I can deliver more to the industry as well as develop the same bond with the industry, with the company as well. So when you get that confidence, yes, you can stand on your own and you can take the risk-taking ability is there, and you see that the industry is open and you can embrace rather than industry embracing, which will happen over a period of time. You start embracing the industry. That time I took the decision that I should move out and deliver more, as an individual. So it's been 2017 I started my own, and since then 3 years, 1 year, 1.5, 2 years has been struggle, and now I feel that yes, I took the right decision and I'm able to perform as I wanted to. Of course, the journey is a longer way to go. So that's it, Lucky. Thank you very much for this opportunity of expressing myself over here as well. So I think we are overshooting time, but questions are flowing. Organizers, do we have, our supporters, do we have some more time or should we close? How it is? I have one more. I think Sangin also has live questions. Sangin, anything more you wish to post over
I
here?
think we can, what we can do is we can target, making quick answers, short answers if there are a lot of questions.
Yeah, we select few questions maybe which can be beneficial to everyone. So one of the question I would like to ask both of you, that one person is asking, is there any upper edge if you are graduating from premium institutes like NET, NIT or IIT while going for a first job in the industry?
What is it?
So say if somebody is graduate from IIT or NIT and second person is from any national college or regional college. So does IIT or NIT candidate gets an upper edge while recruiting?
Not always.
Not always. In industries it is there. Especially in design consulting organization, that small difference will be there.
And there's a plus and minus. There's also IITs sometimes also hold a bad tag of not sticking to the job because they might get employed quickly and then something better comes around and then they jump. So sometimes IITians do carry that negative tag also. And if you really see the recruitment policies, a lot of organizations prefer to take up people with core values from smaller towns, smaller engineering areas, which are more targeted. So, language, presentation, so many things are there. So, no, the answer is like not always, not always. IIT or a NIT can give you the leverage up to some extent initially, but beyond that, maybe not, maybe not.
True, correct.
Correct.
Sangin, I would like to take the next one, or I have ready next. I mean the question, live question.
So there is one question for specifically for Dola ma'am. Since your job was more of travel related, so how did you manage work and personal life? How did you manage?
Just find your own balance and your own safety standards. Most organizations will give you that help and the platform to facilitate those things. But end of the day, you will have to find your own balance. There is, again, this is something that has to be done at a very, very individual level. So right from the beginning, I traveled 15 days a month, 10 days a month. And you need to have family support. Yes, somewhere down the line, that's very, very important. So that's where I said you will have to work out on a balance. I was lucky enough to have that level of family support where, the kids were perfectly fine with me traveling and they've grown. And I sincerely feel that my children have become hugely independent at a very, very young age because of the way they have seen all of us work. In our household, everybody works. So the kids also develop that sense of working right from the beginning. But yes, you have to find a balance. End of the day, especially for women, there is a lot of stereotypical roles that are associated with women, which is changing, which is substantially changing in today's scenario. Probably it was a little more stringent in 20 years back, but that is not something that deters you. You again focus, right? What we were talking about it. If you want to do it, you will have to find a balance. It is workable. So I would not say at every month you will be able to travel. A lot of your jobs, initial stages may require travel, may not require travel, but there is no engineering 100% sitting in the office, not in civil engineering. It's if you are thinking that you can do civil engineering and excel by sitting in the office in front of a computer, you are deluding yourself, because somewhere down the line your growth path is going to be hampered.
Travel and interaction only builds you further, and it makes you ready for further challenges.
Absolutely.
Correct.
Once I finish one travel, I immediately look forward for the next travel when it is going to be, because it keeps on, it's a kind of attraction that what's the next challenge that you're going to have.
Can imagine, what a difficult time I had in the last 6 months sitting at home.
Sitting at home, correct.
And both ways, not just me, the family also, because they were not having me at home for 6 months at a stretch. So I would say it's been a problem on both the fronts. If I'm not traveling, my younger son sometimes says कि मम्मा आप बहुत दिन कहीं गए नहीं. Life gets constricted for them. Life gets so constricted for them if I'm not traveling. Unnecessary discipline at home, which they can live without.
Correct. I think this discussion is getting very interesting and deeper and lovely, but we have time constraints and we have only 7 minutes to close. I think Sangeet needs some more time to close. Before that, can I take one last question, because it is the essence of today's discussion. So this comes from Dr. and I would request these speakers to be a little bit quick because we have closing session as well. So this is from Dr. Muthuraman. Professor, the topic of discussion is very interesting. As an academician, I would like to know what would be your suggestions to bridge the academia and industry so that it can be incorporated in the future curriculum.
Very nice.
Very nice question.
Very nice question, and I will give my own experience. I am an adjunct faculty at IIT Madras. So there is a subject called Design Studio, which is offered by at the MTech level in the 3rd semester. So I take that course. So when I take that course, it is absolutely everything that I do in a consulting engineering, a consulting firm. So I give them an industry problem straight away. And it is only interaction. I don't teach. It is only interaction. It starts with geotechnical investigations. From there, it is only interaction between the student and me. They come up with all that they have learned within the last 1.5 years, plus the BTech that they have learned. So this is what the academia should do. They should try to have a course which is taken by an industry person, so that the industry perspective is given to the students. Most of the faculty, what they do is they give design problems, which is not correct. It doesn't give the essence of the industry, because when an industry person takes that course, he will keep the construction in mind and immediately raise a question. I throw it open to them. So now give me suggestions. How will you do this? So they will come up with suggestions which they have already studied. Then I will say, see, my rig is standing. I am paying so much rupees. This is my outflow. Can you do this faster? Then they start opening up and they start thinking outside the box. You have to give an opportunity for them to think outside the academic box, which they have. That is where their leadership and other qualities will come into picture. Let them discuss. They will discuss amongst themselves and then come up with solutions. So I cover the entire gamut of geotechnical engineering in this course. And once they come out, they're ready for at least the design industry. I have taken 3 of my students immediately after they have finished, and they are doing extremely well. because I don't need to spend time on training. The day they come in, they are ready to prepare the GIR and other designs. This
Exactly.
is my answer.
Great.
So,
great.
so the
I
key
think
is
ma'am has
going
got
to be the communication between the industry and the academia. We need to interact. We need to interact on a very level platform. As an industry, I need to come out and tell what I need, like what Kumar is doing. You know, he's telling the students that this is the need of the industry, and academia has to be open to invite industry for those interactions. So communication between the two is what is required to bridge this gap.
And maybe small portion. The syllabus can include a portion, telling that industry experience along with all the subjects that we have. Maybe the final year could have a small subject telling that industry experience, where this becomes a compulsory a part of it. And this will definitely maybe help the industry as well as academia. So thank you, ma'am Muthuraman.
I have one point. Here, Annapurni, which the academia should understand is if you see the syllabus, it still talks about the old system of well foundations and other things. All these old things should come out and the new ones should come inside. Nobody talks about the latest form of geotextiles or geocells, and all that have remained in research. All this should be brought into the academia, and all the old concepts should be removed. It should be taught in just one class that these existed. These are the fundamentals of those subjects. However, these are not practiced nowadays. Hence, we go forward with latest forms, large diameter piles and different types of piles. Those should be taught. Thank you.
I'm sure ma'am would be satisfied with the answer. She is professor at CEG Anna University. Thank you, ma'am, for your question. So with the, I think we have overshot the time and we just have 3 to 4 minutes to close. Sangin, over to you, please.
Thank you so much. This was very interesting and informative discussion, and we tried addressing most of the questions. Still, I see many questions are being floated, which we cannot answer because of shortage of time. But I request, if anything is there, you can attendees can approach Women in Deep Foundation India.
Yeah,
okay.
We will try.
So that we can help you out. So with this, I would like to thank entire DFI India and Women in Deep Foundation India.
Sangin, this is Lucky. Just wanted to add something to the conclusion. Thank you so much, Dola and Kumar. This was such a robust and breath of fresh air, and definitely an inspiration to all the young civil engineers. Your answers were, and Annapurni and Sangin, the moderators, the best moderators, and I think this was like organic conversation, which I loved. The other thing the other thing I wanted to mention is we have the questions, so maybe we can direct them to Dola and Kumar later, and then maybe we can answer those questions individually as the questions have been asked. Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for DFI.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I would like to specially thank to Lucky for motivating and inspiring us to conduct and organize this webinar series, which is beneficial to our young professionals who will be ready to enter to the industry. So lastly, we would like to introduce our webinar series 2, which is next step to our first webinar, Education Beyond the Classroom. And we have three interesting and very experienced speakers. This webinar will be conducted in January 21 and date will be communicated maybe in next few days. So we request all to log in for that webinar as well. That will be beneficial. And we would like to leave this session with a small video. Of Dr. Akanksha Tyagi. She is professor of IIT Roorkee. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone, for this.
Thank you, ma'am, and thank you, Dr. Kumar.
Thank you for having us here.
Yeah. Thank you, Annapurni and Sangin, for the excellent moderation and very nicely presented questions. Thank you.
It's a pleasure.
It was good to be here.
Attendees, please don't miss this video. It is quite interesting, and I'm sure it is going to motivate all of you. The final video, please.
Hello, I am Akanksha. I am Assistant Professor at the Department of Civil Engineering, Indian Institute of Technology, Roorkee. I've got a PhD in Geotechnical Engineering. I teach, train and motivate young minds to prepare them to meet the everyday challenges that they would encounter in the field of geotechnical engineering. My profession gives me the opportunity to make research collaborations with the other research institutes in India and abroad, and also with the industry to work on the innovative solutions for the real construction projects. As an academician, I've also got the opportunity to transform my innovative ideas into real startups. The Incubation Center in my institute provides infrastructure, seed funding, and mentoring to such startups. One of the many perks that I enjoy is to live in this beautiful campus. The magnificent building that you see behind me is the administrative building of my institute, whose foundations were laid in 1852. We'll be discussing about many such avenues in the field of geotechnical engineering in the upcoming DFI webinar, Education Beyond Classroom.